Hi, I'm Randy Patterson, author of The Assertiveness Workbook. So this is another in the series called Isolated Moments of Sanity. It's about how to maintain your mood and your life during quarantine or social isolation. Today's concept is plan for the future beyond this. There's an old psychologist's trick when you're treating anxiety. In Vancouver, where I work, there's a lot of high bridges, and people who have panic attacks or a lot of anxiety are often worried about having an attack as they're walking or driving across a bridge. And at some level, they're thinking, is this ever going to be over? And am I going to make it to the end? And what you do is you invite them to think about what they're going to do on the other side of the bridge. Are you going to go for lunch, for example? Okay, what are you going to order? And then what will you do after lunch? Now, some people will think that this is all about distraction. You know, if you're thinking about the sandwich, you're not thinking about the bridge. Well, no, not really. In fact, we don't want too much distraction when people are doing stuff that they're afraid of. We want them to know, yes, I am really on this bridge and I am surviving. But we also want to overcome that sense of the bridge as an end point in their existence. When you're terrified of crossing bridges, all you think about is that bridge coming up. You know, you're not thinking about life beyond the bridge. And to some extent, this can reinforce the idea that the bridge is fatal, that it's the end. So by placing your mind on what happens after that bridge, you build a mental stance in which you survive the bridge. Okay, a long story. So what has that got to do with quarantine? Well, part of the mission is to sit inside the quarantine and, in a sense, make friends with it. This is what's happening now. And it's okay. There's that internet meme about how past generations had to train and go off to war, and all we have to do in this war is stay home and watch Netflix. I know that trivializes the very real stresses that a lot of people are under. But in a sense, this is something we can do. But when is all this going to be over? The reality is, you don't know. It can feel like maybe never. You know that that's not really possible. Sooner or later, some semblance of regular life is going to resume. It may be a little different, but it will happen. Because you're coping with it the way that it is, you can lose sight of the fact that there is a new life coming. You are in the dark tunnel, and there are some twists and turns up ahead, so you cannot see the light at the end of the tunnel. You know intellectually that there is an end, but emotionally it can feel like there's not. So just like our bridge people, we need to create an assumption of survival. We need to build a world beyond quarantine. So what I suggest you do is you have a list somewhere of your plans for when things get at least somewhat back to normal. It's like a wish list. So maybe you're really missing something from your old life. Going to restaurants, traveling, visiting your friends in person. Those are things you want to get back. Good. Write them down. Maybe there's something you had that you never really appreciated. There's a great park nearby that you never went to, never explored. So write that down. Visit the park. There's a person you want to have over for dinner and you've never gotten around to it. Write it down. Maybe there's a restaurant or a museum or a pub or a hike that you've never been to. Write them down. Maybe that restaurant will make it. Maybe it won't. But some of the things on your list are going to be out there waiting for you. Maybe there's some major change that you really need to make in your life. It's time to think about quitting this job, or you really want to go back to school, or somehow you want to change the direction that your life has taken. Great. Write all those down. People sometimes worry, what if I get my heart set on this stuff and I don't get it? You know, the restaurant is closed, or I apply for the program but I don't get into it. It's possible, but writing these things down will not make you miss them anymore. Instead, it can help solidify the sense that there is that world beyond this. You will create at least a rough idea of what that world looks like. You will change it from a wish or hope to a plan, and that is going to feel more solid. This is a passage, a tunnel. It can feel like it has no end, but it does. We know that it does. Plan for the future. If you think of this time apart from your usual life as a kind of jail, fine. What are all the things you want to do when you get out of jail? Doing this can actually give you a better life when it actually happens. Better to have a plan than no plan at all. But it can also help get the idea that this is all temporary out of your head and into your gut. So think about getting started on paper. Plan for a future beyond this. Maybe one of the things you'd like to learn about is assertiveness. I have a book on that. Have I mentioned that? See you again.